amazing Dwayne Dawson. I'm really, really excited to have this space this morning. Ryan, how are you? So I'm just going to say good morning to Mandy and Nikki, and then I'm going to say good morning to you, Ryan. Mandy, how are you doing this morning? I'm just going in the order, obviously, here. Go ahead, Mandy.
I am pumped, excited, and ready to go. Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Mandy, for coming up. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to see you this morning, and I hope you're doing good and you're having your coffee. Nikki, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing absolutely stunning. I'm so glad to be up here with my Santy baby and the beautiful Mandy and the amazing Ryan Dawson. It's going to be a great morning. Thanks for having me up, guys. I'm super excited.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Good morning, Ryan. How are you? How are you doing this morning? Did you have a hard week this week? Was it a productive week?
It's yeah. It's 1 a.m. here in East Asia, so it is morning.
Oh,
but
okay. There we go.
Not drinking coffee though.
No, exactly. I know everybody always forgets the time zones, and everybody's all over the world. They think they're dealing with it the time of it's like 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, some people are in the middle of the night or really, really early in the morning. So I mean, people forget that everybody's on a different time zone. So yeah, it's right. Go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I say I'm used to that. Other than like maybe Australia, New Zealand, it's always almost night day. Yeah.
Well, I have a special guy in here listening right now from Australia, Mr. Hishlap. So he's listening right now, which is one of my dear friends. I don't know if you know Hishlap, but he's in here listening, and he's in Australia right now. So I guess the time zone is different. I'm just going to flow with you, and I'm going to be asking you some questions, and getting your views and your points. But I just want to know a little bit about yourself first of all. So, how did you get where you are today? Like, what brought you here? Your career. I just want to know first about a couple of those things. Your career.
Being banned on everything else.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how many accounts? You said 7 or 9 accounts. They banned on this, I guess, right?
On that? Oh, I don't know. Because most of the other things, they won't let you make a new account. Whereas with X, if you get banned, it's pretty easy just to make a new name, new everything. You have to start over at 0 followers. But even then, I was Diana Rawson. I just switched the first letter of my last and first name. I did all kinds of stuff to make it know that people would know, but the robots wouldn't. They would find me eventually and ban me again. And there's never a reason. It was all for political reasons, but there's never a stated reason. Same thing with Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, Discord, all that. I'm not allowed any of it.
When you said political reasons, what do you mean by political reasons?
Telling the truth was not allowed. Like saying genocide is wrong, controversial things like that. That's the thing. What they say is extreme is actually super normal, or it ought to be.
Right? Do you think? I have a really quick question because I'll probably pop in because something you said. So, isn't it interesting that we were censored as a society, and then now the society is censoring each other? Do you find that odd? Because I find that odd right now because we were fighting for free speech or free censorship, right? And now we're here and people are trying to censor each other. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that? And then please continue.
Well, I think you should have free association so you can decide who you want to associate with and not. But someone doesn't have a right to something you've built, but we should all have a right to the town square. Anybody should be allowed on social media unless you're actually breaking a law. You should never have your speech curtailed because it's unpopular or somebody doesn't like it or whatever. And it's pretty sick that what does get censored, like the people speaking out against really obvious things that 99.9999% of people would agree with, like stop pedophilia, don't go to war for no reason. Men have a penis, women have a vagina, stuff like really simple, common sense things are extreme, where they're like, oh, sex is based on identity rather than biology, and we're just going to blow up apartments full of people in Gaza. That should never happen. They just arrested an 85-year-old person in the UK for opposing genocide. I don't know about you. When I was a kid, like, yeah, mass murdering whole populations is wrong, morally wrong. But nowadays, you go to jail for going against the epitome of evil, or you definitely get censored. But if you live in United Kingdom, you can go to prison. That's crazy. And what YouTube censors, like when I put all the things out about Jeffrey Epstein back in 2007. I was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. YouTube comes along. They side with the kitty fiddlers. They side with the warmongering lunatics. They supported ISIS. So you couldn't criticize Al Qaeda. Now, Giuliani just met with Donald Trump in the White House. This is someone that severed people's heads and led terrorist groups in Syria for years, and a protege of al-Baghdadi in Iraq. Like, what's going on? But to me, it's nothing new, because I know, like, since I've been alive, the United States covertly sponsored the Contras in Nicaragua, in killing Sandinistas, and they murdered civilians and chopped off hands and all that nastiness. That they covertly sponsored so-called freedom fighters in Afghanistan, which was the original Al Qaeda that attacks on 9/11, and of course they sponsored ISIS, Boko Haram, Al Shabaab, MEK, the Lucastani terrorists, all over the world. The CIA has done this, but I think it's not until the internet age that the regular 9-to-5er is made aware of any of this.
I want to quickly ask you, just as you're going. So would you say that people with a larger platform like yourself, or have a voice like, Candace Owens, for example, obviously, because right now you see what's happening to her. Do you think that they get more targeted than the average, person with a smaller account?
It all depends. Like, I would not consider myself a large account compared to someone like Candace Owens. I have my account has 300 and something thousand. That's not small, but that's not Candace Owens. She has millions, right? Candace Owens has never been censored on anything. She still has a monetized YouTube. She's allowed on every platform there is. She has faced zero censorship. But then again, up until her mid-30s, she was pro-Israel until like a year and a half ago. She just woke up on one issue and is still pretty much wrong on everything else. It doesn't matter if you're big or small. They will censor you, as they always say, you get flack when you're over the target. When you're accurate, they will get rid of you. If you go Captain Crazy like Alex Jones, they don't care what you say. It's not until you hit a nerve that you get the censorship. And they kind of enjoy someone being anti-Israel and then saying they're not sure if the earth is round or flat, or denying the moon landing, or the 28th Charlie Kirk conspiracy today, or whatever. They don't care, because you sound like an idiot. And that's good for them. They don't care if you're like a Nick Fuentes type, because you're like all anti-Israel, but then like completely racist and pro-Stalin. So like that makes us all look horrible. So they'll promote that. You can be on PBD and Tucker Carlson, whatever, if you're doing that stuff. The people who get truly censored are the ones that aren't saying idiotic stuff or extremely racist stuff. People like Ed Snowden and Julian Assange, the point people who are on target, not crazy, saying accurate things. And there's nothing wrong with conspiracy if it's an accurate one. I certainly don't shy away from conspiracy. They happen all the time. But there are plenty of ridiculous ones, too. And people seem to point to something like, well, they lied about WMDs, or they lied about Kennedy. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't justify just making up whatever you want about whatever event you want and saying, well, all conspiracies are valid now, because they're not. So what I see people getting censored is people who have... Well, you're right in the fact that the larger your account is, the faster or quicker you're going to get noticed. But they will censor smaller accounts too, and mid-sized accounts like mine is now. They do that at Jeremy McKenzie, for example. I think part of the reason they went after the Tate brothers was they didn't care when they were doing manosphere stuff, because it doesn't matter. But when they started talking about Gaza, when they started talking about like issues that the people in charge care about, then suddenly human trafficking, rapists, blah, 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 went to jail. Like, They went after Matt Gaetz when he was going to be the AG and could have been releasing the Epstein files, which Bondi is not doing. They waited till he was out of Congress, yet not yet in the cabinet, to hit him with a wrap-up smear, where somehow there were leaks, right, from the Congressional Committee on Ethics, but they only leaked the accusations and not the conclusions. So you heard all these horrible accusations from these women about Matt Gaetz, and you did not hear the conclusions, which is that he was innocent. But there was such a headache that Trump had to dismiss him from the cabinet position. They tried this on Brett Kavanaugh. They went all the way back to when he was in high school, accusing him of sexual impropriety and stuff. That one didn't work. But this is the kind of stuff you get. They called Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul. They smeared him with so-called racist newsletters. Ron Paul, right? This is what happens. If they can't censor you, they will try to discredit you by labeling you sexist, racist, or some kind of crime or whatever.
Just quickly,
more so if you're a celebrity, the more reach you have, the more significant you are, the harder you're going to get hit. But the more accurate you are, the harder you get hit too, even if you're not a big voice, because someone who's a smaller voice could just be friends with a bigger voice and be a threat that way.
You're absolutely correct, because I'm in the industry myself. I work for film and TV, so I know when we talk about celebrities, I mean, they take it from everywhere. Like, I mean, they get hit everywhere. So I completely understand. But one question, so you said Candace Owens, you said one thing. What did the one thing did they get? Because you said they pushed back. I can't remember your exact words. You said a few minutes ago. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, she got one thing right. Like, she's finally, I don't know, was she 33? But I don't know.
Think so. Yeah, I think
something like that.
She's in her 30s.
She was out in Jerusalem with Charlie Kirk celebrating the embassy being moved. She used to be a diehard, Christian evangel Israeli firster until she saw which way the wind was blowing. And what it was is she watched a Bassem Youssef interview where he put on with Pierce Morgan, where he pulled out charts and we showed all the home demolitions and stuff. And she started looking at it and Israel's indefensible. They blow up babies. They blow up hospitals with people in them. They rape prisoners. You just cannot defend it. And so she left the plantation on that issue, which is great. She's a big name, and she finally woke up, midway through her adult life. She finally figured out that shooting babies is wrong. But on everything else, she's still way off the mark. And what they're doing to her is a travesty, because they're feeding her disinformation to discredit her because she's such a threat on the Israel issue. So they got her out there saying Bridget McCrone's a man and just ridiculous stuff.
Do you think they're sabotaging her purposely? They're obviously right?
Absolutely. What happens when someone gets what we call newly red pilled, they become over skeptical. And so people just start feeding them conspiracies about everything. And they tend to be a bit naive because they've been lied to about COVID. And they got lied to about this. So everything's a lie. Like, no. You have to be like, yeah, there was hype on COVID and there were no WMDs in a lie. I can list a whole bunch of lies. But you cannot categorically just start accepting every conspiracy theory. That's just as wrong as categorically rejecting every conspiracy theory. You have to look at them individually based on their merits and evidence. Not just based on this is a lie, so this is too. That's a really crass generalization, and it doesn't work. Now the world is. So it's not the frankest. The Earth is round. We did go to the moon. We did go back to the moon. Bridget McCrone had 3 children. She's a woman. I mean, this stuff is just dumb. And when you say things that crazy, even though she's right about Palestine, I think finally. It doesn't matter because you sound like a moron when you jump on these other issues without really looking at them. There's not going to be a new 9/11 next week. That's her newest thing. And I know people get butthurt about that, but I'm like, look, we don't need people on our side getting, I call it shit pill. Someone's in her ear whispering poison so that she discredits herself. Because if she had not done that, she would be the biggest threat to the system. but she wrecked it.
I want to ask you, as an independent journalist, do you give everybody a voice? Do you respect other people, other accounts, other opinions, their thoughts, even if they said to you, "Oh no, I believe, Ryan, that the Earth is flat, it's not round"? Would you, shake a stick at it? Would you respect, even though you agree to disagree? And that's just one example.
No, not on that. Like, you can agree to disagree on something like, well, I think they killed Kennedy because the MIC was mad that he was about to pull out of Vietnam, or because he didn't give air support to the Bay of Pigs. Like, those are like legitimate differences of opinions. The Earth is flat is just retarded.
It's way out there. It's way out there.
There's a point where it's like I don't have any problem, like, if you're liberal, conservative, whatever. Like, these are you can back that up with a philosophy, like why you're like even a communist, or whatever. Like, I can hear them out. But the Earth is flat. It's like way across the line. I've flown around it. Like, this is really, you're really, really discrediting yourself when you say things that are that dumb. Like,
I'm gonna ask you a
when you
quick
call
question.
science the
science
faith and a cult to the mega church like Candace did, like, dude, science is not a pagan faith.
Would you say? I want to ask your opinion. Would you say, the Macron's Bridget, is she biologically a male or psychologically a male? I'm asking your opinion.
Psychologically, the different. I don't know what she is psychologically. Biologically, she's a woman. She had 3 babies. Transgenders cannot have babies.
Correct.
Her brother's also still alive. Like, they're like, ask her brother. Like, their brother was in the lawsuit against the people defaming both of them. Like, the whole case is stupid. But what it is, you're like, why would anybody believe that? I blame the government. Like, the reason, because not everyone that believes that is dumb. Let me parse this out. It's a dumb thing to believe, but you don't have to be dumb to believe in something dumb. What happens is people get lied to about everything all the time. They're so gaslit that they just take the contrarian position automatically because the government has never told them the truth on anything. Not on Syria, not on Iraq, not on Libya, not on Iran, not on Ukraine and Russia. Like, they always lie. Well, yeah, that doesn't mean you just start making stuff up. And that one's definitely made up. Like, they just had babies.
Okay, so I have a slew of questions, and what I'm going to be doing is we're going to be touching lots of topics. Now, the most current one, I guess I'll start with that one because I do have a bunch of things I want to discuss and get your point of view for everybody. I won't be taking mics just right now. We will be taking questions very shortly, but I want to I want to pick Ryan's brain, get his thoughts, and just feel him out, see what he thinks about these things. So let's talk about Venezuela right now. That's because actually it's the most current thing. What's happening? Nikki, go ahead, please.
Before you jump into that, I just want to touch on the fact that there's over 160 people in here, and there have only been 18 reposts, and that include only one other quote post other than mine. And I think that we can do better than that for Santi and for Ryan. And the lovely Mandy is up here today, guys. So head on down to that black pill, blue pill, red pill, whatever you have your settings to, gentlemen. Maybe it's a little blue pill down there for you. And if you're enjoying the space, like the space. And if you're having fun, repost the space, but even better, quote post the space, because then it gives an opportunity for me, Santi, and Mandy to repost your quote post and get more people into the space to enjoy the conversation as well. Then afterwards, once they're done, we're going to be bringing people up to interact with Santi, Mandy, and Ryan also. So come on, guys. Santi, Ryan, and Mandy deserve better. You can do this. Also, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it just piggybacking off of the flat earth thing kind of speaks to our judicial system, because there have been civil cases, flat earthers versus round earthers, and the flat earthers won, and then they won it on appeal too. So I just thought that that's a little funny anecdote to put in there this morning, you guys. Yeah, but round earth all the way.
Thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate you for doing that for me, setting the space. Okay, Mr. Ryan. So what are your thoughts about Venezuela? Because right now we have a mixed views on it. People believe that it's oil. People believe that it's a drug. People believe that there's a whole thing behind this whole attack on Venezuela. Because realistically, I mean, Mexico is attached to the United States. That's where things are getting filtered. What are your thoughts about Venezuela right now? The current situation.
Well, it's Marco Rubio's fault. There's absolutely no reason to go to war or do airstrikes on Venezuela. I'll make that real clear. These things are never in the American national interests. I understand people say oil because Venezuela has oil, and that's kind of the trite liberal with a capital L way of thinking of like every war is about resources. It's always like oil. Another faction will be like, oh, they don't have a Rothschild central bank. They do actually, but people tend to color whatever happens with whatever their preconceived notion is. You see that every time there's a school shooting, the anti-gun people will blame it on guns, anti-big pharma will blame it on SSRIs. So and so, they pick on trannies or Muslims or whatever's in their head is what they jump to without looking at the specifics. Venezuela does have oil, but if you look, they offered to sell us all the oil and gas, and that got rejected. You'll see that from Biden onward and Trump when he was first president, put sanctions on the oil so that they couldn't sell it to the United States. They were not trying to get the oil. They're trying to break their economy. So if they wanted the oil, they could buy it. You don't put sanctions on something you're trying to steal. If you're trying to get more oil to lower oil prices in the United States or something, then you wouldn't put sanctions on buying oil, would you? And you would accept it when they offer to sell it to you. That's not the reason. They want a regime change in Venezuela, and I think Colombia would be next. If you notice, the one place that Venezuela decided to not send oil to was Israel. And the opposition party said, first thing they do, we'll recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Why would you say that? How is that relevant at all? Now, of course, the Trump regime is going to color it as stopping fentanyl and cocaine and drugs from entering the country, which is like, yeah, drugs shouldn't really, you got to get rid of demand on that issue, but then suddenly you started caring about cocaine from Venezuela. That's not why. You're blowing up fishing boats and things. That isn't it. It's absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. They've got 20% of the U.S. Navy out there. You want to fight 51 million people in the jungle? It's a lot bigger than Vietnam. It's a lot closer to home. We have advanced anti-missile defense systems from Russia, and as well as aircraft from Russia and China. It's not a pushover nation. I'm not saying they can stand up to the United States, but it would not be some easy conflict that you could just resolve with airstrikes and leave. You're talking about really hitting a hornet's nest for no gain to the United States. No purpose.
Quickly, I want to ask you, so, I think that it's a bold move that reshapes Latin America's energy dynamics. China Concord Resources Corp, CCRC, has deployed a 1 billion floating oil facility in Lake Maracaibo, Western Venezuela. The project, 20-year production sharing agreements with Venezuela state oil companies, PDVSA, aims to pump 60,000 barrels per day, and late to 2026 up to a current 20,000. So what do you think of what's China have to do with this? I want to ask you questions. Yeah, go ahead, please.
The United States pushed them into China's arms. Like, it was the United States policies, because the U.S. wants U.S. companies to run Venezuela. It doesn't matter that you have oil and that you're willing to sell it. It's like, no, we want ExxonMobil and specific our American companies in there. They had that conflict with Hugo Chavez, because here I can see both sides on that, because what Chavez did, is a former leader of Venezuela, by the way, is he got contracts from people like Exxon and Bechtel and these, logistic and oil companies out of the United States to do refining and building offshore platforms and pretty complex things that took a lot of venture capitalism and investment to do. And then he just reneged once they were built and replaced them all with Chavez loyalists. Now, that was not a smart move, and they feel very rightly butthurt and all, but you're kind of at the public in Venezuela is suffering between picking which master. Because whether it's a domestic despot or a foreign despot, it's not you. It's not in your interests. It's in the select commercial interests of some faction that doesn't care about you. Now, people often try to color it as like, oh no, if we get our own guy that's at least from Venezuela, he won't exploit us. Yes, he will. And so will the United States. I wish there was a good guy in this scenario, but there isn't. But obviously, no war is better than war. So I would side with even Maduro, like, well, I don't want U.S. invading. But they were willing to do that for the commercial interest and control over that whole industry. It's not just simply selling light crude. It's all of it. They want it from top to bottom. And it gives you soft power politics on other types of trade once you control energy. And they also want to set up the kind of debt loan system to where if your oil is nationalized, at least you would have the potential of using the proceeds to throw into infrastructure that doesn't generate revenue for a long time. Things like hospitals, schools, and so on. Whereas, or making finished products. Like, why don't you turn your own oil into gasoline and other things? Like, finished products obviously make much more than raw resources. Well, they want it shipped so that the U.S. can turn things into finished products, and they want it by U.S. companies, U.S. controlled by a select group of billionaires that actually run the show. This is kind of a tug of war between despots, like I said. But if a foreign corporate interests take over your natural resources, you can bet they're just gonna sell it to themselves, and none of the money will roll back into anything that's going to help the people in Venezuela.
Thank you so much. So, Ryan, last night there was an update really late last night. So, their shocking details have emerged from the secret phone call between U.S. President Trump and U.S. President Donald Trump and Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro had held last week. So, there was a phone call held last week. According to Wall Street Journal report, Trump warned Maduro to step down or face U.S. military force. The revelation comes just days before Trump announces his closure of Venezuela airspace, intensifying fears and as well as blah blah. In an emergency phone call, President Trump said to Maduro, the only way to stop an attack is to step down and leave the country now. Brazilian CNN News has reported that Venezuela's President Maduro is now preparing to step down and leave the country. There are also reports that he is allegedly, yes I say allegedly, fleeing to Tehran, the capital of Iran, according to CNN Brazil News. What are your thoughts about that?
Now, isn't that contradictory in a way to say to the public, oh, we're bombing boats and fighting Venezuela because of narcotics, and yet you can avoid a war by changing a political view, right? Oh, we just get someone else in power, as if then all the drugs would stop, right? You get the narco, cocaine does come from Venezuela, but that is not at all why they're on a war. They don't want Maduro because he doesn't favor U.S. corporate interests taking over his country. They want to get rid of him. No one cares about people in Venezuela. They don't care about their standard of living, quality of life, any of that. They just want to exploit the resources of the country. And so, Maduro's unwilling to cave. So they're like, well, we got to get rid of you. It's a regime change. They'll admit it. In a phone call, they do admit it. But publicly, what does Trump say? What does Marco Rubio say? We're fighting drug dealers. You're fighting drug dealers. You just met with the leader of ISIS in the White House. That was financed in part by illegal narcotic sales. And, you liberated $64 billion a year from an over 20-year war in Afghanistan for the poppy fields that our U.S. military was forced to guard. Don't give me this crap that you're trying to stop opium or fentanyl or cocaine. The CIA, we used to call it the Cocaine Import Agency. That's what CIA stands for. They are so disingenuous. It's a great excuse for, we're starting the drugs. And by the way, there was no evidence of any of these boats and people that murdered had any drugs. And something the administration did is they labeled Maduro and what they call a regime, it's a government, as terrorists. And what that does legally is Trump can issue airstrikes without approval from Congress or any other oversight body. And not that Congress would prevent it, but it absolves them from accountability because they're like, oh, well, Trump did that on his own because you labeled him terrorists. You're allowed to strike terrorists whenever, whatever, without asking for approval. And so that he's looking for a way to be able to act quickly on his own. And Congress is very happy to not have to show their hand, even though they would sign off on it. Now they have plausible deniability, saying, oh, well, it's beyond our control. They're labeled terrorists, so he is allowed to act on that. War Powers Act and da-da-da. And by what criteria is Maduro a terrorist and Giuliani not a terrorist?
Correct.
Or Netanyahu not a terrorist when he's blowing up hospitals and things like, it's just, the hypocrisy is palpable. And it ought to be super obvious to see these things. We're allied with dictators all over the world, from Bahrain to the kings and princes in Saudi Arabia. It's disgusting. And Venezuela is not the problem. The biggest terrorist in the world is the state of Israel. The worst in the world today. We're propping up neo-Nazis in Ukraine. There's so many examples. ISIS is the worst. I mean, that was ongoing. Obama did it. Biden did it. Trump did it. It's this terrorist group, Daesh. I mean, it's labeled a terrorist group by the State Department. And now you're shaking hands with these people. It's disgusting. Oh, no, it's not ISIS. It's HTS, which used to be the Al-Nusra Front. It's just Turkish-backed mercenaries in Syria. And they are ISIS. They just switch hats. It's unbelievable. They support terrorists all throughout North Africa, like you're not doing anything about the RSF in Sudan, for example. And the rapid forces are definitely committing acts of terrorism. They killed 2,000 people in Al-Fashir this week. 2,000 civilians. And there's like 400 children that have been orphaned. This week in Sudan. Oh, wait, 2,000 dead, 400 orphaned. That means a lot of the ones killed were also children. I don't even think that was in the news. I was probably on like Al Jazeera, but it was U.S. News, page 18 or something, something Sudan. But anyway, they're sponsored by the UAE, who's propped up by the United States. 92% of all Sudanese gold goes to the UAE. So it's like you're cherry picking, like, oh, Venezuela's the problem. Oh, they're terrorists. Unbelievable.
Do you think it's a psyop, a distraction? Look over here, lot over here.
But not from Sudan, because they're not looking at that, and it's not even from Palestine. It's from the Epstein files.
Well, quickly, that Syria, when we talk about Syria, I mean, they do have hidden laboratories, factories, underground and above ground as well, with Capricorn, a poor man's cocaine. No one ever discussed that. And they are actually, smuggling that across to different parts of the world as well.
Well, the white helmets, were that, so for people who don't know, it's like speed, I guess. Maybe you said poor cocaine.
They call it's called Capricorn. Yeah. They call it a poor man's cocaine. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so in mid battle, juice up with that. It's horrific. And I just forgot her name, but there was a journalist from Bulgaria that really blew the lid on that. She did a story on Purple Shovel too, which was facilitating a lot of the small arms that were going into Syria. It was disgusting what happened in Syria. I mean, it was a combination of Turkey, Gulf states, Israel, and the United States to topple Assad because they wanted to break the land bridge between Hezbollah and Iran. Why? Because Hezbollah is impeding Israel's ambitions of land annexation and ethnic cleansing. And they literally wrote this out in policy papers from the 80s to now, from Oded Yanan. Of course, everybody knows the Clean Break Memo. And then a lot of the papers from the Weekly Standard from the Project in the American Century. It's not like hidden. It's not a secret society. It's not hidden. It's like AIPAC's not secret. These things are right in your face. They wrote it out. They literally had people in the U.S. government, like Richard Pearl, writing policy papers for a foreign head of state, like Netanyahu. Same with Wormser and a lot of these people in the military. Should be treason. So Syria, like it's horrible. Like this is one of the oldest civilizations with continuity. You know, like Egypt, China, and Syria. And Syria it's not Syria anymore. Half of it's Rojava, Kurdistan, and the rest is run by Daesh head-chopping lunatics, mercenaries from everywhere except Syria.
So
that's what's going on there. But
yeah, absolutely. Now I have a slew of topics I want to talk. Is there one specific topic you want to address? Like I have so many here. Actually, not address, just talk about and get your thoughts. Is there one topic you did want to discuss today? We can start off with that. But I do have.
Well, I'll answer whatever you asked me. But you kind of asked earlier: is this a psyop?
Yeah,
or distraction? This and that. But absolutely. I think what it's distracting from is not the conflict in the Middle East or Ukraine, definitely not from Africa, because no one ever cares about Africa. It's the Epstein files.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you this, and I've said this from the start, you're not going to get a freaking file. Not happening. They'll produce something so redacted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you get one, it's going to be markered.
I have the client list on a T-shirt. You know, I'm not scared. I'm like, I've put first and last name of billionaires and called them pedophiles. I put it on a hoodie and a shirt.
You know what I did?
You know what
I did? Someone sent me the list in 2020, I believe. I think he sent me a PDF and a list. And what I have a friend named Mary, and I have a client named Mary. You know, I pressed the wrong test, and I sent the list to a client. It's hilarious.
Well, I actually even mapped it out and how they relate to each other and everything. And what's funny is, this is that 10 years ago, I think. But this stuff really took off around 2019 because that's when he got rearrested. And then later, Maxwell got arrested, and then Peter Nygaard got arrested, which people don't know how they overlap, but they do.
They do.
And then, oh yeah, and the Nexium, Keith Raniere got arrested. All these pedophiles got arrested in 2019, and a couple in 2020. And then you had the lawsuits with Andrew and da-da-da-da. But yeah, the Bronfman family is the bridge between Robert Miller and Nexium and Epstein. Like, they're in all of that. And Andrew's a bridge. Andrew's like the Kevin Bacon of pedophile rings, Prince Andrew, that is. He visited Nygaard and Epstein in it. If people don't know, Peter Nygaard's convicted and in jail. So that, what I was saying is,
he's Canadian, right? I believe he's Canadian, correct?
Yeah. His family's from like Finland or something, but yeah, he's Canadian. His business was out of Canada and also in the Bahamas, so whatever. But he's in jail. Miller's in jail. Epstein went to jail. Brunel was another one. He got arrested in France. Jean-Luc Brunel was jailed. Maxwell was jailed. And Raniere was jailed. One of the Bronfman's daughters was jailed. But everyone's like, no one on the Epstein list had any consequences. I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, I just named like 7 of them that all went to prison. More that J.P. Morgan and Chase had to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars, so did Deutsche Bank. Like, I hate meme culture. Like, they say something in the meme. I'm like, that isn't true. You're waiting for television to tell you about it, and that's not going to happen. But yeah, it's frustrating to me because I put these lists out a long time ago. But what's been fun is over the years, like they just released more names of these emails. Oh look, Larry Summers. Oh look, Reid Hoffman. Oh look, I'm like, go back and look at that list. Like when you get it, you said 2020, so like 6 years ago almost. I think, well, tomorrow, like in a month. They're all on there. Wexner, the Dubins, Summers, like they're all on there. Been on there. But I'm not going to be allowed on TV or doing a Tucker interview or anything to talk about it. So,
well, we were talking about Epstein. I always tell people, my listeners, my followers, and I appreciate them all. But I always echo out how large this, let's call it umbrella, this olive branch, these weeds go through it. I mean, when you talk about Epstein, we talk about the Comeys, we talk about Ghislaine, we talk about Mossad, we talk about
all the white collar crime too.
Yeah,
that he did. Bear Stearns, and that's mainly what he did.
And he
was
also
money laundering.
and also he's had his hands in almost absolutely everything, even Diddy, even Palantir. I mean, even Bitcoin. I mean, BlackRock. It's
Well, the
all there.
precursors,
Yeah,
Promise, Pegasus, and NSO, they're all prior to Palantir, right?
exactly. So, what are your thoughts about just?
And you know what? NSO went back to Richard Pearl, too. Prince of Darkness. They used to call it Total Data Awareness.
Yes,
Back when they
yes, I
worked
read
at
that.
he was the chairman of the Defense Policy Board in the DOD with that. And they've been working on this. Like, right in the middle of my map is Peter Thiel. And they just sort of like 2 months ago figure out, look, Peter Thiel signed his birthday card. Oh, look, Peter Thiel met with these emails, blah, blah, blah. Dude, this is all old news. With the file they released, it was like last January, last year, or whatever, was all court records and thing we already had. And then Binder thing was nothing but like flight logs and stuff. That's been out. Nick Bryant put that out, I think, whenever, many, many years ago. And it's not everybody that went on a flight with Epstein was a kitty fiddler. They were a lot of college academics and stuff that kind of ignored how he was because they wanted his money for science or whatever.
Now, why? Just because you said something like really,
which is still wrong, but that's not the same as raping kids. It's a big gap. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely correct. I think that, and people used to think that's the information that's fed to them. They believe that all the people that were on that island were that, but I mean, actually, they were just.
Well, let me say something there. First of all, it's islands plural.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Everybody keeps forgetting about Little St. James and Small St. James that was bought by Peter Deckhoff, which is Black Diamond, CEO of Black Diamond.
That's right. Greater St. James too. He owned them both.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you didn't have to go to either of the islands to mess with kids. The majority of that went on in Florida and New York.
And Zorro Ranch.
In Zorro Ranch, New Mexico, and Ohio, and Paris, and in London, and Maxwell's own houses and stuff, and her properties, and all the Burnell properties. Were mostly his main properties was Palm Beach in New York, and then probably Zorro in Paris. But he messed on Wexner's properties too, and then you had Little St. James and Greater St. James, and also St. Thomas, because he had an office in St. Thomas, and he brutally raped 2 girls while the governor's wife was in the adjacent room, the first lady, who he put on a $200,000 salary. Like, oh, I didn't bribe the governor. I just paid his wife $250,000 a year. Cecil Annoyance, I think her name was. It's disgusting.
Now, I want to get your thoughts about one thing. So let's just go a little further back. Now, allegedly, and I always say allegedly, the views, the opinions of the speakers and the listeners, they're not mine or the co-host, but I mean, and they're not everybody else's as well. Let's go a little further back. Let's talk about Bill Barr's father. Now, Bill Barr's father allegedly wrote this book, and basically it's a simulation, a mirror image of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And of course, his father hired Jeffrey Epstein at Dalton School. What are your thoughts? That's what I want to find out. What are your thoughts about the fact that the father of Bill Barr hired him? That's what they're saying, right?
The book part is true. He did write a book of. He wrote a disgusting book about. I
think it was 1979, 1980, I believe. I can't remember the exact
space rape and stuff. It was weird.
Yeah, it was way out there.
It reminds me of. Do you know Louis Libby? Or
yes.
Libby, they call him.
Yes.
His real name is Leibowitz. He wrote a book about underage Japanese girls being raped by a bear in Canada, like locked in cages and getting bear raped, which is just what is wrong with your brain?
The imagination, it's like way out there,
Now, no one that didn't happen to anybody, but there's something that wanted to happen, and it's such a weird thing. But so Barr didn't actually hire Epstein because he was already gone from the school the year before Epstein was hired. And what had happened was, in 1973, a lot of the Jewish donors that kept the Dalton School afloat didn't donate. They donated directly to Israel because of the Yom Kippur War. And so what happened at the Dalton School is the headmaster and 6 teachers all lost their jobs in downsizing, and Barr was one of those. And so it was Gardner P. Dunning that comes in and hires him. But he's doing that at the behest of the board. And I talked about this with Cooper on his show on Substack. I don't think it ever made it to YouTube, but I get it because he doesn't want to get banned. But I went over the whole thing. I don't feel like spending an hour on that history, but I heard him on Tucker say the story because it would be really neat if it was true, because Bill Barr's his kid, and Bill Barr's in the Trump administration. He links to the Acosta, I was told the challenge back off, blah, blah, blah. But it just isn't so. However, the board members of the Dalton School are worse. So it gets to be even better story. And everybody, if you check out the Mother Maid podcasts on Substack, we talked about it. I talked about Epstein for like 3 hours on there, and I went over the whole thing and each of the donors and stuff.
So, I mean, when we talk about Epstein and, the Dalton School and Bill Barrs and all that stuff, let's kind of tap into, the Clintons, the Obamas, and the Bushes. How do they connect to Epstein as well? I'll be asking how these questions, and I also want to move, when we talk about, the Comeys as well, Maureen Comey, her husband, and who actually allegedly stepped down the same day that he was indicted. I mean, he was on the Ghislaine Maxwell case. That's Maureen Comey's husband. She was circling back and forth on the Diddy case and the Epstein case, and of course Comey was the FBI director and he was there for 9/11. So I'm going a little deeper. What are your thoughts about that as well? How do they tap into the Epsteins? I mean, is it all woven in together?
Well, what they seem to be doing is being quite partisan, on who they go after. Look at the choice. When Trump mentions people, they're all on the left. They want the names he'll spit out. And the reverse for the other side, they all focus on Trump and people on the right. But they're both correct. I mean, Clinton too. Clinton was he was president of the United States. He met Jeffrey Epstein and Glenn Maxwell in the West Wing, right after he got inaugurated. It was February. I don't know the day, but it was the month of February, right after he became president. He's meeting with them. He knew them before when he was governor of Arkansas. He's somebody that went to Little St. Jeffrey's. And there's really no reason to go to that island other than, why. I mean, you can get financial advice or whatever on the phone. But he wasn't trying to tap his expertise for how to launder money. It's not like the Clintons couldn't do that with the Clinton Foundation and Frank Juster and their own mobsters. They knew that already. There's only one reason to go down there. Now, that doesn't mean Clinton was messing with children, because a lot of the girls that Epstein had were legal, barely, but 2019, there is a difference, legally anyway, between 17 and 18. Mm-hmm. And so he may have been messing with Monica Lewinsky types. Right? Because look, if you're not into kids, you're not into kids. You can't make somebody a pedophile. And most of these Johns were not pedophiles, but they knew that Jeffrey and Brunel and these people were, and they said nothing. So to me, you're still guilty.
Exactly.
And prostitution with an of-age woman is also not cool. But it's just far less of a crime than abusing a kid.
No, hold it 1 second, Brian. I'm going to bring up a few speakers. Please keep your mics muted. If you want to speak, just put your hand up. We're going to be accepting questions very shortly, but I just want to go through a lot of topics with Ryan. You're absolutely correct. Even if you saw, what are your thoughts about that? Sometimes I didn't get involved. I saw in the corner of my eye, but I just ignored it. What are your thoughts about that, Ryan?
Because
there's so many of them, right? There's so many.
everybody visited him knew. You could not go to any of those properties and not figure out what was going on. Topless, adolescents at the pool and stuff. It's like I was pointing out to Michael Tracy the other day because he's like hardcore the other direction. I'm like, listen, man, it's hard to prove something like rape because it happens in a room and it's, he said, she said. But here's what you can definitely prove. Why do a couple of 50-something-year-olds know any 16-year-olds at all, much less hang out with them at their house?
The Hollywood parties. Those parties, right?
They did bring them to parties, and the people that got honey trapped at parties, I can kind of forgive a little. You take a 17-year-old and put an inch of makeup on her and slap the other alcohol and
leave your cell phone at the door.
Somebody could mess up, and but a lot of these people, like, they don't ask their age. Like, oh, I thought she was. You didn't want to know, you little creep. But they're not like actively seeking it. So, and that's the other thing you can do. You can mix in. You can have some girls who are like 20, 21, whatever, and then one of them 17 and a half. That's not usually what happens. Epstein had girls there who were like 12. So did Burnell. Jean-Luc was probably worse with the children half of it. Epstein's worse because of what he was using the bribes to do. And he used bribes 90 times more than he used blackmail. You don't really resort to blackmail unless a bribe has failed. Because why? The more people you're blackmailing, the more risk you have of getting killed.
Now I'm just going to go a little further in. They're all coming out in different directions, but I am staying on the topic. So, when we talk about Epstein, we talk about the Comeys. Do you find it interesting that, they actually fired Maureen Comey and she was on the Diddy case, and, the Epstein case, and her husband was on the Ghislaine Maxwell case. I always found it fascinating how connected they really are. So what are your thoughts about the fact that there are allegedly there's 200 emails that connect Diddy to Epstein, and then I want to go to metabiota because people don't forget, they don't want to talk about it because this is a really risky topic when we talk about metabiota and all that stuff and the will and whose names are on his will and his estate, stuff like that. But then also Ukraine burning the documents in 2020, that was with so it's like they're all connected, Ryan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a mouthful of stuff in there. Diddy.
Sorry, just call me Barbara Walters.
It's okay, but it's kind of a lot of stuff to break down. P. Diddy is not. He's like pretending to be the type of gangster that Epstein actually was. He had his stupid. Him and Jay-Z would use the leverage of the Super Bowl parties and stuff to get, they'll call them escorts, let's just say what it is, prostitutes, to bang celebrities and stuff. And they had a cornucopia of drugs, pink cocaine, so there would be like coke and ketamine, Viagra, special flavor ketamine, all this stuff, and ecstasy, which would destroy these people. But a lot of it was freaky, but consensual. It was consensual, most of it.
And ecstasy's been around for like a long time. It's just not. Wasn't invented 20 minutes ago. They were taking it. The people were taking the ecstasy in the early 90s. Continue, please.
Yeah, that's not that long ago, but yeah, these Israelis
I feel old.
In two different instances of $40 million worth of ecstasy being smuggled, one from New York and one in California. They were the progenitors of ecstasy in the 90s. A lot of the ecstasy was originated in the Netherlands, but it was the Israelis that were bringing it to America and really pushing that. It was the Israeli ecstasy ring is why they were spying on the DEA groups on 9/11. That's another can of worms, but the Diddy is not even remotely close to the power and influence of Epstein. Epstein had prime ministers and presidents and royals and billionaires. There's like 17 billionaires on that first page. That's Diddy. But Diddy's a billionaire actually, but he's, actors and singers and escorts. It's just not on that level at all. And he's really nothing to Epstein. Diddy is more tied to other pedophiles in the music industry. And stuff everyone knows. Everyone knew about the casting couch, Claude and the rest of them. Like, they knew about it with Weinstein. Everyone knows there's a casting couch for Hollywood too. And that's all disgusting and gross. I'm glad it's getting some attention.
Ryan, can you explain just for the listeners, what is a casting couch?
Well, if you want this role, suck a dick. That's, you want this movie role, show your titties. You want this, do this. Like, so you got to mess around with the producer or the director or you don't get the job. And some other girl's going to do it if you don't. And so they feel enormous pressure, like, well, I won't get on any films again unless I do this. It happens to men, too, and kids. But mostly, it's young women. And a lot of them that can get the roles because they were willing to get on their knees for it. And so it's power harassment. It's the official word legally when you leverage your power over somebody in their job for sexual acts. And so they're not commercial sex acts, like they're not being paid with money, but they're being paid by a job which comes with money. So it's still prostitution. And it's a way like you don't get in unless you are willing to pass the casting couch test. If you're not willing to go, you don't get the role. And a girl who would open her mouth or spread her legs does get the role. And the exact same thing happens in the music industry. Like, oh no, the music industry is based on whether or not you can sing and dance. No, it isn't. They don't write their songs. They use auto-tune. They dance are choreographed. And you can do enough camera cuts to make it look... you can choose who the next big singer is. Like, a whole thing's manufactured. It's just whether or not you're supposed to play the role to push degeneracy on the youth. And that's how you get the role. People don't know the difference between a musician and a magician.
Ryan, it's interesting because Mira Sorvino, and this is actually a fact, she's actually talked about it, that, she actually had Weinstein because she wouldn't sleep with him. He actually made a campaign to go out to every director and producer not to hire her. She was actually going to work on Lord of the Rings. She was actually she auditioned for it, and the producer actually told her, "I'm sorry, I can't hire you because Weinstein told me not to." So it kind of destroyed her career. And when you think about it, she hasn't really done much, right?
You know who tried to spill the beans on this many years ago? No one listened to him because he's a little bit eccentric and weird. Corey Feldman. He was a child
Absolutely.
actor. Lost Boys, Goonies, a bunch of films in the 80s and stuff. And he was drugged and raped. So was Corey Haim. And he has tried to tell his story. But because it's not like Harvey Weinstein level names, they don't care. And I saw that with Epstein too. Like, when I'm talking about, like Glenn Dubin, hedge fund manager, billionaire, important guy, not famous. Right? It's not like a celebrity. When I'm going through this list and I talk about Conrad Black or Les Wexner or Michael Steinhardt or something, he's like, yeah, boring. They're like, what about Tom Hanks?
Tolerance will reach such a level that intelligent people will be forbidden to think so as not to offend the imbeciles. And the prophet was right. We live in an age where thinking has become a crime, where the sensitivity of fools is worth more than the clarity of the wise. Truth now must apologize, thought must walk on tiptoes, and whoever dares to question is silenced, labeled, cancelled. What they call tolerance is in truth the new name for cowardice. A society that protects stupidity is doomed to be ruled by it. Dostoevsky saw the abyss long before us, and he was right. The world the wicked, but by the cowards who can't stand to hear someone who thinks differently.